As Yixian made his presence known, the leader of the group arrogantly introduced himself as Tanghua from Kangmu Academy, proudly declaring his intention to kill Yixian. However, before Tanghua's introduction could fully register, his head was swiftly separated from his body, causing it to fall lifelessly to the ground. Witnessing the lifeless body of their leader, the remaining lackey broke into a cold sweat, their confidence shattered by Yixian's lightning-fast sword. Addressing the remaining duo, Yixian pointed his sword towards them, questioning who he should fight first. Momentarily frozen in fear, one of them questioned if Yixian was truly a sword cultivator, while the other contemplated the reward on Yixian's head. As the greedy one proceeded to grab his sword, Yixian's smirk grew wider, as he swiftly dispatched both of them with a single slash, ending their lives in an instant. As if nothing had happened, Yixian turned to Yiling and casually invited her to return and prepare dinner. With joy in her eyes, Yiling happily agreed. Walking back together, they left behind the lifeless bodies of their adversaries, serving as a grim reminder of their encounter. Later, inside Kangmu Academy, Xiankang sat at the center of the room, reflecting on the trio's failure to survive against Yixian's sword, despite supposedly being at the level of Sky Realm. Xiankang then turned to an elder and sought his opinion. The elder expressed concern, speculating that Yixian might be inferior only to an Langxiu. He suggested warning students across the world not to rashly challenge Yixian, to prevent them from needlessly losing their lives. Enraged by the elder's suggestion, Xiankang stood up abruptly, remarking on the foolishness of the idea. He ordered that they allow more people to challenge Yixian, believing that the more people he kills, the more enemies he will have. He reminded them of the 72 branches of Kangmu Academy in Qinzhou, asserting that Yixian should offend them all. Concluding his statement, Xiankang ominously declared that for the sake of Kangmu Academy, Yixian must be eliminated. Meanwhile, at Kanglin Academy, while Dingji leisurely sings a tune about a great aunt and her rosy cheeks, Yixian seizes the opportunity to address him, voicing his desire to break through to the Sky Realm. Dingji responds nonchalantly, telling him to go ahead if he wants to. Feeling slightly awkward, Yixian proceeds to inform the dean about his unique physique, which requires him to absorb spiritual swords in order to break through to the Sky Realm. He expresses his awareness of their current situation but insists on obtaining a dozen spiritual swords. However, before he can finish his sentence, Yixian realizes that the dean has already dozed off, fast asleep. Startled by the dean's sudden slumber, Yixian raises his voice, shouting at him to wake up. Observing the scene unfold, Anji offers to help Yixian. Surprised by her offer, Yixian inquires if she possesses spiritual swords. Anji replies, urging him to follow her. As they arrive at a dilapidated building, Anji explains that it was once a sacred place for the members of Kanglin Academy. The 9 sacred pillars symbolize the 9 paths of the main academy of the kingdom. Every year, powerful individuals use these 9 divine pillars to disseminate their teachings there. Before Anji can finish her words, Yixian interrupts her, asking if there are spiritual swords within the sacred place. In response, Anji politely tells him to shut his damn mouth. Yixian retorted, stating that her explanation is not a big deal, insisting on spiritual swords. Pissed by his blabbering mouth, Anji menacingly stares at him while gripping her sword. Seeing this, Yixian quickly apologizes, assuring her that he won't interrupt again and urging her to continue speaking. As Anji slashes one of the pillars, an expensive-looking stone falls near Yixian. Curious, Yixian inquires about the nature of the fallen object, seeking an explanation. After sheathing her sword, Anji informs Yixian that the fallen stone is a jade spirit stone, the foundation stone of the inheritance pillar, and the most valuable item they currently possess. She instructs him to take it and sell it in exchange for swords. Curious, Yixian questions whether selling such a precious item would result in a significant loss. Anji responds by suggesting that if he doesn't want it, she will give it to Mu Yun and buy Zhe instead. Not wanting to let go of the opportunity, Yixian hastily snatches the bag, firmly declaring that no one is allowed to take it away. Observing this, Anji criticizes Yixian for pretending in front of her, pointing out his eagerness to claim the stones despite his earlier hesitation. Later, inside the drunken immortal house, Yixian addresses the elder and inquires about the price of the gathered jade spirit stones on the table. The elder informs him that a single jade spirit stone is worth about 50,000 gold coins, making the total value of the stones around 5 million gold coins. Curious about the cost of a spiritual sword, Yixian asks about the price of a single one. The elder replies that the average quality of a spiritual sword costs at least 3 million gold coins. Hearing this, Yixian wonders if he can only afford to buy one sword. In response, the elder assures him to wait a moment, as he will find a way to assist him. Yixian responds positively, expressing his gratitude for the elder's willingness to help. Lost in his thoughts, Yixian's attention is suddenly drawn to a girl who is skillfully carving wood into the shape of a bird. The elder then addresses Yixian, revealing that he has brought the spiritual swords for him. Realizing that his money might not be enough to purchase both swords, Yixian informs the elder about his financial situation. In response, the elder declares that Yixian is an honored guest of the Drunken Immortal House and should consider it a small gift from them. Yixian expresses his gratitude to the elder for the kind gesture. As Yixian exits the establishment, his mind filled with thoughts of cultivation upon his return, his attention is once again captured by the presence of the girl he had noticed earlier. Observing her, Yixian smiles, remembering how his sister shared the same hobby of wood carving. Approaching the girl, Yixian kindly offers his assistance, inquiring about the object she is trying to carve. Initially hesitant, the girl is won over by Yixian's bright smile. She points at a bird, indicating her intention. Understanding her gesture, Yixian assures her that he will show her how to carve it, silently assuming that she might be mute. With swift and precise movements, Yixian proceeds to carve the bird, while the girl attentively watches him. After finishing the sculpture, Yixian inquires about the quality of his work, seeking the girl's opinion. Yixian then offers guidance, advising her not to rush the sculpting process to avoid making mistakes. Waving goodbye, Yixian explains that he still has something to attend to, bidding the girl farewell. As Yixian departs, the bird approaches the girl, and she asks if it sensed anything from Yixian. The bird replies, stating that it didn't detect any fluctuations in mana. Reflecting on their oversight, the girl comments on the absurdity of them failing to notice the appearance of a sword immortal in Jiang, given that they are the protectors. Curious about Yixian, the bird suggests taking care of him, considering that he has offended her. However, the girl insists they refrain from interfering, stating that they should allow him to develop. She believes in Yixian's pure heart and good intentions. As they watch Yixian from a distance, the girl expresses her plan to nurture him and potentially add him to their circle of talented individuals in Qingzhou, provided he remains true to his nature in the future. As Yixian enters the isolated alley in the city, he senses a presence behind him. Turning around, he sees a person who directly asks if he is Yixian. The individual then proceeds to threaten Yixian, revealing their plan to decapitate him. Taking a moment to assess the situation, Yixian confirms that there is indeed more than one person behind him. Lowering his swords, Yixian calmly questions whether they have the skills necessary to kill him. Agreeing with Yixian's statement, the scarred individual acknowledges that it is precisely why they are fighting as a group. Hearing this, Yixian remarks on the Kangmu Academy for sending 3 individuals from the half-step Divine Harmony realm, questioning if they are truly that afraid of him. The scarred person charges at Yixian, criticizing his arrogance. Yixian, relying solely on his fist, meets the scarred person's spear with his bare hand, swiftly overpowering and defeating him in one strike. Provoking the remaining opponents, Yixian questions whether they still plan to fight him together or if they are simply afraid of facing death. Driven by anger, the 2 remaining individuals simultaneously charge at Yixian, vowing to use his blood as a sacrifice for their fallen comrade. As their weapons approach him, Yixian focuses on them with a determined gaze, seemingly planning his next move. In a sudden burst of bright qi, Yixian vanishes from sight, leaving the 2 opponents to inadvertently strike each other with their own attacks. Observing the scene, Yixian scolds the 2 individuals, reminding them of his previous statement that fighting one-on-one would have been a wiser decision to avoid accidentally harming their comrades. Suddenly, a swift arrow pierces Yixian's shoulder, causing him to react in pain. He criticizes the person who launched the attack, deeming it a despicable and cowardly sneak attack from behind. In retaliation, the woman defiantly declares that she will avenge her brothers by killing Yixian, preparing for another attack. Swiftly, Yixian summons his sword and deflects her arrow, pointing out the irony that they had intended to kill him but ended up being defeated by him instead. He criticizes the students of Kangmu Academy for their unreasonable behavior. Leaping into the air, Yi Xian raises his sword, delivering a powerful blow that strikes the woman, seeking revenge for being shot at. Despite her injuries, the woman manages to stand up, trembling in pain. Inwardly, she acknowledges Yi Xian's strength, realizing that her brothers were no match for him. Coming to a decision, she concludes that it would be better to retreat for now. Observing the woman, Yi Xian contemplates the fact that there are 3 opponents in the half-step harmony realm, wondering who they will send next. He promises to make the old dog from Kangmu Academy pay a heavy price for his foolishness. Observing Yi Xian on the roof, Mu Yun questions if he was watching the sunset while holding his weapon. Yi Xian informs them that there is something interesting in the alley, inviting them to come and see for themselves. As Mu Yun and Bai Zhe admire their new spirit weapons, Yi Xian explains that they are top-quality spirit weapons. Mu Yun realizes the effectiveness of Yi Xian's frequent battles in terms of making money, while Bai Zhe eagerly asks to be called upon for the next fight. Noticing the arrow still lodged in Yi Xian's shoulder, Anji expresses concern for his well-being. Yi Xian is about to assure them that he is fine, but suddenly he collapses, causing Anji to worry. Later, inside Yi Xian's room at the Kanglin Academy, Mu Yun seeks an update on Yi Xian's condition from Dean Ji. Dean Ji reassures them that there is no poison in Yi Xian's body and explains that he lost a significant amount of blood and is also suffering from hunger. Relieved to hear that there is no poison, the group takes a sigh of relief. With a clear head, Anji advises the others not to inform Yi Ling about what happened, as it would only make her cry all night. Understanding the consequences, Mu Yun and Bai Zhe immediately agree. The next day, at the back of the Kanglin Academy, Yi Xian and his friends happily train together, carrying a giant log on their backs. Looking closely, Mu Yun's delight becomes more evident as he questions why he has to participate when it was originally intended for Bai Zhe alone. Yi Xian voices his own complaints, questioning why he, as someone who is sick, is also required to partake in the training. Anji interrupts them, telling them to stop complaining and reminding them that the training will benefit their overall strength. At that critical moment, Anji's agility saves her from the incoming arrow, which obliterates the log she had been using as a makeshift seat. Confronting the assailant, Anji demands to know their identity. The woman from their previous encounter boldly calls out Yi Xian, shamelessly boasting about sparing him yesterday and confidently declaring that his escape is futile now that she's accompanied by her brother. In response, Yi Xian retorts, exposing her cowardice by recounting how she fled like a frightened animal. Unable to find a suitable comeback, the woman seethes with frustration and vows to end Yi Xian's life. However, her comrade steps forward, taking charge of the situation and announcing his intention to personally confront Yi Xian. Introducing himself as Feng Yixio, ranked 19th on the martial arts list of Qingzhou, and the chief of the inner courtyard at Kangmu Academy in the Chu Kingdom, he presents himself as a formidable challenger to Yi Xian. Yi Xian introduces himself in turn, proudly proclaiming his position as the reigning first-place holder on the martial arts list of Qingzhou. Mu Yun, taken aback by this revelation, questions when Yi Xian achieved such an impressive rank. Yi Xian charges his sword, explaining that being at the bottom of the list is not a desirable position. Yixio, observing Yi Xian's determination, creates a swirling vortex of qi in his hand, suggesting that if Yi Xian truly occupied the lowest rank, he wouldn't be standing before him now. Intrigued, Yi Xian asks Yixio if he truly holds him in such high regard. Yixio replies with unwavering confidence, asserting that he does not underestimate anyone, acknowledging the potential of his opponents. Proceeding with their clash, both fighters are sent back as they momentarily stare at each other. Yi Xian closely examines his weapon, marveling at the incredible strength possessed by the realm harmony cultivators such as Yixio. Similarly, Yixio contemplates silently, pondering the formidable combat prowess of a sword cultivator, even in the profound Qi realm. Both fighters acknowledge the gravity of their opponent's abilities, realizing that they cannot be taken lightly. However, before they can determine a winner, an elderly figure suddenly materializes before Yixio. The elder admonishes him for not maintaining a low profile and questions whether he intends to demolish a house. Yixio, filled with apprehension, addresses the elder respectfully as his master, inquiring about the reason for his unexpected presence. The elder responds casually, questioning Ishio if he needs his permission to be there. Nervously, Ishio laughs awkwardly and embraces his master's arm, assuring him that he wouldn't dare. Amused, the elder affectionately refers to Ishio as a little bastard. Turning his attention to Yixien, the elder asks if he was truly rejected when attempting to join the Kangmu Academy of Jiang. Without hesitation, Yixien confirms the elder's inquiry. Enraged by the revelation, the elder curses angrily, venting his frustration towards Xiankang and his subordinates, labeling them a bunch of retards. Collecting himself, the elder jovially takes hold of Ishio's hand, extending an invitation for Yixien to befriend his cherished disciple. He mentions that they have yet to be acquainted. Perplexed, Yixien inquires if he truly heard it right. Recognizing the elder's cultivation level to be on par with Ding Ji's, Yixien wonders to himself why the elder is encouraging his friendship with Ishio. Sensing Yixien's hesitation, the elder reassures him, emphasizing their sincere desire for friendship. Yixien, skeptical of their sincerity, raises his concerns, reminding them of the past attacks he endured at their hands. In an attempt to prove their genuine intentions, the elder conjures 3 magnificent weapons, presenting them to the group as evidence of their sincerity. Yixien and the others exclaim in awe at the remarkable quality of the weapons. Bai Zhe, however, can't help but feel a tinge of disappointment for not receiving one. Observing their amazement, the elder expresses his delight in their satisfaction. Yet Yixien remains resolute, questioning whether offering such weapons is enough for him to forgive their previous attempts on his life. He firmly declares that he won't forgive them so easily. Surprisingly, the elder seeks to understand the conditions under which Yixien would let go of his grievances. Yixien turns his attention to the lady among them, demanding that she kneel before him and kowtow 3 times. The woman responds with anger, explaining that their actions were merely tests of his cultivation. She criticizes him for killing her brother and accuses him of humiliating her in front of her master, deeming it a villainous act. Hearing her words, Yixien throws the weapons aside without hesitation, remarking that if she refuses to comply, then they should leave. Continuing his stance, Yixien asserts that they cannot absolve themselves with just a few spiritual swords. Hearing this, the elder's disciple responds negatively to his words, but the elder dissuades them with a gesture. The elder then explains that his disciples have offended Yixien without his knowledge, claiming that it was his fault for not disciplining them properly. To their surprise, the elder kneels down while declaring that he will apologize to Yixien on their behalf. Seeing this, the elder's disciple hurriedly dissuades him from his action. However, Yixien approaches the elder, explaining that he can already see his sincerity. The elder replies approvingly, remarking on Yixien's kind-heartedness. However, in his inner thoughts, Yixien concludes that he will not leave long if he allows the mysterious elder to kowtow to him. Addressing the elder, Yixien inquires about the reason for his willingness to kowtow and make friends with him despite the Kanglin and Kangmu Academy being enemies. The elder replies, explaining that he has always respected talents regardless of factional enmity, and that Yixien is someone worth getting acquainted with. Listening to their conversation, Ishio explains that his master is a man who cherishes and respects talents, and that his master is willing to befriend him because of his good cultivation and decent reputation. Continuing his words, Ishio points out that if Yixien doesn't want to make friends, they will not make any effort to please him. Replying to him, Yixien remarks he is willing to make friends but inquires about his definition of a friend. Ishio replies, explaining that a friend is someone who shares the same interests and supports each other. Responding positively, Yixien remarks on his confidence that Ishio will be a good friend. Similarly, Ishio responds positively to his word. However, Bai Zhe butts in, presenting a reasonable question on why everyone got something but not him. Presenting him with a bottle, the elder points out that Bai Zhe is cultivating his physical body and that he doesn't have anything suitable for him to use. Therefore, he will give him a bottle of elixir. Bai Zhe responds positively to his words. Following their conversation, the elder turns to Yixien and explains that they must take their leave as they still have matters to attend to. They extend an invitation for Yixien to visit them in their country if he ever finds the time. Later on, Ishio addresses his master, curious about the reason behind such a generous monetary gesture made to befriend Yixien. To their astonishment, the elder reveals that he is willing to sacrifice the entire wealth of the Chu kingdom just to establish a friendship with Yixien. He explains that he firmly believes that Yi Xian will eventually reach a level of power that surpasses even the sky itself. Inside the Boundless Tower, also known as the Boundary Prison Tower, Yi Xian meditates amidst the array of swords he had previously acquired. In his inner thoughts, Yi Xian wonders if the 3 swords will be sufficient to aid him in breaking through to the Sky Realm. With determination, Yi Xian absorbs the swords into himself, a powerful surge coursing through him as he shouts like a Super Saiyan. As he opens his eyes, Yi Xian realizes the significant improvement in both his sword and his cultivation, now reaching the Sky Realm. Upon visiting the 2nd floor, where the giant eye resides, Yi Xian proudly announces his breakthrough and proudly proclaims his weapon to be a top-grade Ming sword. He confidently asserts that it won't be long before he can crush the giant eye. However, tired of the incessant boasting, the giant eye rightfully punches Yi Xian in the face, forcefully sending him back to the physical world. As he opens his eyes, Yi Xian gasps in surprise, realizing he has unexpectedly returned to a different location. Later, at the back mountain of Kanglin Academy, a joyous shout reverberates through the air as Yi Xian ascends to the sky, marveling at the realization that he is now flying freely with what seems to be a legendary flying sword. Waving at Bai Zhe, who is meditating nearby, Bai Zhe exclaims in surprise as Yi Xian declares that Bai Zhe should now address him as Yi Jianxian, or Yi the Sword Immortal. Observing the departing Yi Xian, Bai Zhe questions inwardly if Yi Xian has contracted Mu Yun's brain disease. Moving on to his next target, Yi Xian demands the attention of Ding Ji. Curious, Ding Ji opens his eyes only to be greeted by the sight of Yi Xian behaving like a chuny, proclaiming himself as Yi the Sword Immortal. In response, Ding Ji tosses him a coin and sternly advises Yi Xian to see a doctor as soon as possible, leaving Yi Xian staring at the coin in disbelief. Observing Yi Xian enjoying his new ability, Ding Ji remarks on Yi Xian's immense happiness over a simple flying sword. However, Ding Ji's expression suddenly changes as he senses Xian Kang's presence on his back, observing him and commenting on his comfortable life. In response, Ding Ji demands Xian Kang to leave, as his presence is unwelcome. Ignoring the Dean's words, Xian Kang highlights his awareness of Yi Xian's ability to fly with his sword, indicating that he has already broken through to the Sky Realm. In response, Ding Ji curtly tells Xian Kang not to waste his time talking before he takes his leave. Changing the topic, Xian Kang reminds Ding Ji of an unknown mystery discovered in the Jade Mountain range of the Ning Empire, adding that the master of the secret world is speculated to be Tohu, the strongest person in Ning. In an attempt to persuade him, Xian Kang further speculates that Tohu, being a practitioner of the 10,000 Dharma mirror, must have left behind numerous treasures within the secret realm. He mentions that anyone under the age of 20 is eligible to participate. Given this information, Xian Kang suggests that Kanglin Academy should participate. However, Ding Ji firmly replied that they will not be participating. As he blocks his path, Xian Kang seeks confirmation if Kanglin Academy is genuinely refusing to take part. Ding Ji affirms that they have made their decision not to participate. Unsatisfied with Ding Ji's response, Xian Kang destroys the wall nearby, revealing multiple figures behind it. Ding Ji realizes that among them is Yi Ling, along with 2 robed individuals from unknown backgrounds. Witnessing this, Ding Ji condemns their shamelessness for tarnishing their reputations in their pursuit of killing Yi Xian. He expresses disbelief that they would send 2 people at the manifestation realm just to capture an unarmed little girl. Unperturbed, Xian Kang places his hand on Ding Ji's shoulder, explaining their sole intention of killing Yi Xian while maintaining their reputation. He instructs Ding Ji to relay a message to Yi Xian. If he doesn't participate, they will kill his sister in the secret realm. In retaliation, Ding Ji points at Yi Ling, warning Xian Kang that he will kill the students of Kangmu Academy if he dares to harm Yi Ling. Responding with a warning of his own, Xian Kang asserts that they will kill Yi Ling if Ding Ji dares to make a move against them. Hearing this, Ding Ji clenches his fist in frustration, realizing that if he insists on fighting Xian Kang, Yi Ling will likely be injured. He resolves to endure the situation for Yi Ling's sake. As they leave the academy, Xian Kang demands to meet Yi Xian in 3 days at the secret realm. In response, Ding Ji warns Xian Kang that he is seeking his own demise. Xian Kang retorts, suggesting that it was Ding Ji himself who sought death by accepting Yi Xian into Kanglin Academy. Arriving at the scene, Yi Xian immediately launches an attack on Xian Kang, demanding the release of his sister. Amused, Xian Kang smiles condescendingly, scolding Yi Xian for his rudeness before retaliating with an attack that sends Yi Xian crashing into the wall. With a belittling tone, Xian Kang instructs Yi Xian to come to the secret realm in 3 days if he wants to save his sister. Despite his aching and trembling body, Yi Xian continues to demand the release of his sister, but his pleas are predictably ignored. Seeing this, Ding Ji advises Yi Xian not to be impulsive. Yi Xian responds, pointing out that they have taken his sister. Hearing this, Ding Ji apologizes, explaining his inability to predict Xian Kang's dirty tricks. With trembling fists and gritted teeth, Yi Xian declares that he doesn't blame anyone other than himself for being weak. Hearing this, Ding Ji is understandably saddened. At the same time, the rest of the group arrives at the scene, calling out to the dean. Anji inquires about Yi Xian, stating that she saw him rushing towards the mountain range with his sword in a fit of rage. Ding Ji informs them that Yi Xian is probably heading to the Ning Kingdom. Mu Yun asks for the reason, and Ding Ji replies that Yi Ling was captured by Xian Kang and taken to the secret realm of the Ning Kingdom. In response, Mu Yun criticizes the old dog of Kangmu Academy for his disgusting actions. On the following day at the back mountain of Kanglin Academy, the group gathers as Yi Xian informs them that the situation was a trap prepared for him alone, and they didn't have to be involved. However, Mu Yun insists that they won't let him face danger alone, reminding him that Yi Ling is their sister too, emphasizing their strong bond as brothers. Echoing Mu Yun's sentiment, Bai Zhe asserts that they would never abandon Yi Xian in times of peril. Yi Xian tries to deny their involvement, but the group remains resolute in their decision to accompany him. Eventually, Yi Xian relents and agrees to their support. Meanwhile, inside the palace of the Jiang Kingdom, one of Yutian's subordinates relays news about Yi Xian, who has been coerced by Kangmu Academy to go to the Ning Kingdom. In response, Yutian comments on the actions of Kangmu Academy. While Yutian tends to his cute puppy, he orders his subordinate to uncover the identity of the 2 black-robed men accompanying Xian Kang. He also instructs him to send shadow guards to escort Yi Xian. Following this, Yutian inquired whether it was true that the drunken immortal house is also sending someone to accompany Yi Xian. His subordinate immediately replies affirmatively, adding that the 9th princess is also going to the Ning Kingdom. Hearing this, Yutian praises his granddaughter for her loyalty to her friends, noting their similar characters. To the subordinate's confusion, Yutian decides that there is no longer a need to send additional escorts, as he will personally go by himself, given that Yi Xian is a cherished friend of his granddaughter. Meanwhile, inside the Two Worlds mountain, a man kneels in front of a house, delivering news that Yi Ling has been kidnapped by Kangmu Academy, and is en route to the Ning Kingdom. Upon hearing this, the person inside, who is the lady from before, erupts in anger and smashes the house, questioning the background of Kangmu Academy and deeming it a worthless organization. With a menacing look, the lady declares that if anything happens to Yi Ling, she will slaughter every disciple of Kangmu Academy without mercy. Meanwhile, Xian Kang slams his fist on his chair, angrily questioning the identity of the person spreading the news that he has captured Yi Ling, which could potentially ruin Kangmu Academy's reputation. In response, Li Xiu speculates that it could be the doing of the drunken immortal house, possibly with the involvement of the royal family of Jiang. Xian Kang dismisses the idea, arguing that there's no reason for these factions to side with Kanglin Academy. However, Li Xiu nervously reveals information from spies, stating that the 9th master of the drunken immortal house has personally escorted Yi Xian and the others on their way to the Ning Kingdom. Additionally, the former lord of Jiang is secretly involved in their escort. Hearing this, the elders of the academy discuss among themselves, realizing that these 2 factions are clearly supporting Kanglin Academy. Another elder inquires about Yi Xian's true identity, pondering how 2 major powers would be willing to side with him. In a threatening tone, Xian Kang demands that Li Xiu reveal everything he knows about Yi Xian's origins. Nervously, Li Xiu answers that Yi Xian is from Qingqing. Xian Kang throws his tea and scoffs at Li Xiu's response, calling it nonsense, and questioning how a small city like Qingqing could produce a great sword cultivator. As he proceeds to berate Li Xiu, Xian Kang points out that Yi Xian already possessed some power when he arrived at Kanglin Academy, but now his strength has improved significantly. He questions how such a person could be ordinary, and accuses the intelligence team of being a bunch of idiots. Trembling in fear, Li Xiu admits his mistake and begs for forgiveness. In response, Xian Kang coldly calls him useless. He then addresses Mook Song, inquiring about the progress of their preparations. Responding with confidence, Mook Song informs Xian Kang that the Ning country has agreed to their request, and an individual will cooperate with them in due time. He also relays that only the disciples of the Great Cloud Empire asked for another volume of heavenly martial skills, or they would refuse to join the fight against Yixian. Xian Kang aims to unite all factions against Yixian, commanding Mook Song to promise them that, in the future, he will compensate all academies or sects, regardless of the reward they desire. The other elders react surprisingly to this plan, while Mook Song acknowledges the order. With everything settled, Xian Kang reveals his intention to arrange matters with the Dark World while challenging the notion that Kanglin Academy would still dare to protect Yixian if the entire world will become their enemy.